Guys, a lot to get to this morning. The left attacks Priya Patel for being maybe a little too based. Um, Sargon Avocad does a great hit piece on Piers Morgan, and it really shouldn't even be called a hit piece because if it's true, it's not a hit piece. It's just the news. Little update, quick update from the DoorDash girl. That's right, the one that opened a guy's door and found a penis. And if we have time, we'll get into Sargon Avocad talking about how based is Elon. Let's get started with Stephen Crowder talking about Priya Patel.
Not all cultures are equal. They are.
Oh, yeah. Hi, this is the Thursday show. Welcome to the Associated Guests. I, as always, am your host, your forgetful host, Alfie Animus, here at the Bear in Mind channel.
I said it. Guess what? All people are created equal under the eyes of God and the law, but not all cultures are equal. This is a simple fact, and I don't understand why it is now a cardinal sin, according to the left and some on the right, to say this out loud. But it is a fact. You still have cultures today that embrace things like slavery, underage marriage, polygamy, human sacrifice.
And that's just
not
Somalia.
all immigration
well, not the last one.
is good. Even legal immigration can be bad. And I get
Depends
that we
on who's
have
running
this
the legal
toxic
immigration.
empathy here in the United States where we think that we just need to allow the entire world to flood our borders and invade our country. However, this is how you cause societal collapse. When
Based.
you allow people to move here en masse, as we have, especially from places like the third world, you don't even incentivize, you don't even allow the opportunity for assimilation, because these people come here in their own communities, they stay together, and
Yeah,
just
you send them all to the
take
same place.
over
They're sent
American
to the
cities.
same place
We're
by the
allowing
previous
our
administration.
culture and our norms to be completely eroded. These people are coming here, they're not assimilating, and then they're outbreeding us in our own country. And then on top of that, they're committing violent crimes against American citizens and killing us.
Now, I will say, I don't disagree with anything that she's said. She got 2.5 million views for. This is pretty privileged because she's pretty much saying what was said about 4 years ago.
That's definitely true.
but it's
Well, we're
acceptable.
saying on Tough Crowd.
Yeah, it's what people have been saying
2001,
for a very long
literally
time.
what she said.
But if you're a pretty lady, you will
back
get
then it was
more
funny
plays.
because
It doesn't mean that it's
nobody
wrong.
saw this
Also, she was
happening except for
reposted by
major cities.
Elon, so she's going to be baby mama number 18.
Boom! She's next on the list.
Yeah, I really like what you have to say. I've never heard it before.
Want to meet?
Here's my penis. So
Check your DMs.
Is that supposed to be Elon Musk?
it's bulletproof.
I've got a
No,
nice
it's
rocket.
not.
I noticed all the
Elon Musk is like notably autistic, right? Like we can all agree on that.
influences are like women in their 12s.
Yes. Well, the
No
ones
fat
that
pig with a hair lip and a wig.
Yeah, the ones that Elon picks, it's very clear. He's
Is
like,
that? Is that?
oh, she has good genes. Retweet. It's not bulletproof, Elon.
Who the
Well,
hell
my
does
penis is
Elon?
bullet resistant.
It's bullet resistant.
It's not a good pitch.
Want to see my rocket?
Oh my God, Father. Okay.
Skyrockets in flight.
Afternoon delight.
Delight. This could stop a 30 out 6.
Oh, jeez.
I'm just saying, Elon, look,
delight.
he does a lot of good stuff. Maybe the Antichrist. Now, the replies to Patel's post,
I mean, he could very well be.
We're not friendly.
He could
So
very well
this
be.
just shows the divide where we all go, yeah, that's reasonable. And by the way, let me also point out, it is not hypocritical for her to have the last name Patel and say, by the way, a lot of people with the last name Patel don't assimilate. She can say, I get it. I've benefited from immigrating here, and I still don't think that most people from my country, assuming she is from India or her heritage, I still don't think that most of them will assimilate properly.
Yeah.
That's not hypocritical.
No, it's not at all. And I bet her dad or family came here and assimilated to this culture based on what they produced.
Yeah.
Well, and
I would imagine that happened.
We'll
Somehow
get in
the
here in a
last
second. He's going to
25-ish
go into
years,
some of the
people just
backlash that
stopped
she's
it
gotten, and I'll
altogether.
comment
And I would
on that.
imagine one of her parents is somewhat white.
She's also Christian.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Just found that out.
That's good.
Yeah.
The mother works tech support.
Yes, exactly.
She's here, which is amazing.
So the replies that are not very nice, you can check the references. Alex Cole wrote, "Wild take from someone named Patel." It's not. You'd think a family history of immigration would come with a bit more awareness.
Again, this is why it's important to differentiate, which the left hasn't done in a good 10, 15 years, the difference between legal immigration and illegal immigration. Words matter. And using those two words to differentiate is a good way to know the difference, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people think that this is just racism, nationalism, which it is a little bit of that one, nationalism. But before all this came to a head recently, most people were not anti-immigration at all. And that's just a fact. They're starting to become that which they've been accused of, which is not usually a good way to go about things. But just know it's important. From this person here, Alex Cole, a retard on X, wild take from someone named Patel, they legally immigrated here. She's mostly talking about illegal immigration, mostly. These days, because they've been allowed to and been given... the thing where they say your crime's not a crime. I can't think of the word. I've only had one cup of coffee. But because that's happened, people think that that's still legal. No, it was still illegal and then pardoned, I guess. Not really pardoned, but pardoned.
Yes. Hey, how about this? What if someone comes from a long line of racists or Klansmen? Are they allowed to diverge? Are they allowed to say, by the way, I am not my father, my grandfather, I don't share their views? Why, in this case, do you want to marry someone? Do you want to bond them to a culture that they are rejecting? Isn't it?
And that's the same thing. It's as ridiculous as when Destiny was talking about, because the person who shot Charlie Kirk, his parents are very MAGA. They're very much of the MAGA movement that he himself is. When the funny thing is, Destiny, he says that's not possible. His parents are MAGA, he's MAGA. But Destiny himself, his parents are MAGA. And as we all know, Destiny himself is not. He's quite counter MAGA. He's practically patient zero of TDS, as they call it.
Isn't it a good thing? It's only hypocritical if you're advocating for something that you don't believe. That's very, like, Nancy Pelosi saying you can't go out, you have to socially distance while she goes into a salon in a particle vortex. That would
and that's only after a certain person said it wasn't okay to go out. Before that, until her person said it wasn't okay to go out. Before that, it was come on down to Chinatown because Trump's racist. And I know the Republicans are almost as guilty of this, especially around COVID. Everyone kind of just flipped their opinions when we swapped out presidents. But come on.
Be hypocritical because you didn't actually fear it. Daniel Droge wrote, "The pick-me energy doesn't work with racists." That's something I always say, too. Like, if women are reasonable, if they have an anti-unfettered immigration stance, or if they are more traditionalist and they have an anti-feminist stance, they go, "You're a pick-me girl." Like you're a turncoat. These are all very old times.
And I love how it's the pick me is basically to women what Uncle Tom is to black people. That's basically what it is. It's saying you don't agree with the majority. You want people to believe that everyone's their own individual person and everyone can believe what they want to believe, except when it comes to politics. Everyone has to have the same politics who looks a certain way or has whatever naughty bits or what have you. I don't find this. I've always... It's the same as like South Park. South Park's always been counterculture. They were very much making fun of Christians, although, tongue in cheek, all good, and good fun. They did the same to the left when the left was technically in charge, and now they've swapped back to mostly making fun of the right, because the right won the presidential election by a landslide. As a matter of fact, if they had taken Kennedy off of all the ballots in those states, at least in the states that he had asked to be taken off of, but they refused because they wanted Kamala Harris's numbers to swell or Trump's numbers to diminish a bit. They didn't do that, and he would have had over 50% easily.
Hired attacks. Walter Masterson wrote, "The white supremacists don't want you. It doesn't matter how much racism you do for them."
First of all, people, stop saying do racism. Stop saying do genocide. This is a great way to show how retarded you are, basically. If you say things like someone's going to do racism or someone's going to do a genocide, like Hassan Piker and his orbiters love to say, it shows that you're a fucking moron. And that's just it's unavoidable at this point, because you can't have it doesn't even make any sense. Like, and that's not just me being the grammar Yahtzee that I haven't been known to be. The same way how how I don't like how Ben Shapiro says data as a plural. It sounds weird to me. But let's continue.
It's grammatically incorrect. It's also just a stupid statement. Your mother should be ashamed of you. Christopher Hale, DNC delegate, wrote, "Deport Priya."
Whoa.
Now, in most cases, I would agree with those two words together.
But in limited situations.
But in this case, veto. And so this is what we were talking about, too, with a lot of young people. And you realize when you watch that Change My Mind installment, young people have never had this conversation. They believe that, what makes someone an American? They want to be here. Well, everyone wants to be here. And I know you'll have some elitist Europeans right now like, not me. Well, we don't care about you. So everyone wants to come to this country. It's a golden ticket. And you don't appreciate anything. You devalue whatever is of value by simply giving it away for free. A lot of young people just operate their fundamental premises. Anyone who wants to come here.
Right, ladies?
With no duties, with no requirements, and not even asking why do they want to come here. Do they want to come here because they want to be a part of the United States of America, or do they want to come here because of free stuff? Do they want to come here to take? There's a huge difference between a pre-welfare state immigration system and a post-welfare state immigration system. There's a huge difference between a pre-30-something trillion dollar debt, because at the time of watching this, I have no idea where it's going to be. It could be well into the 40 trillions when you watch this, and post that. It's, like you ever had a family that has to create a budget? Things get tighter? That's where we are. Anyone acting like they don't understand it is being disingenuous.
Yeah. Retarded.
We
They're being
need to
retarded.
figure out, the conversation here needs to be, what is an American? And that is culture. And by the way, shorthand for culture sometimes is race, sometimes is entire countries, because you have to make broad generalizations to make an informed decision as it relates to safety.
And speaking of broad generalizations, we're going to talk about Jasmine Crockett for a moment after this.
As it relates to security. So when I say India, of course it doesn't mean all Indians, every single one on earth, but in general, a country where close to half of the people poop in the streets and throw it in celebration as part of their religious holiday and suckle on their mom's I don't want them here.
Or Tim's mom's.
Oh.
You know.
I'm still going through the
Or my
process.
mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
Sounds like Cleveland.
So you That's why God punished Cleveland by lighting their river on fire.
it happened in Pittssburgh, too. Come on.
That's true.
Here's a
I was
place
there when it was on fire once.
Were you?
Yeah, I was playing the improv. It was great.
Catches on fire.
Did they have an improv? Was it hilarities?
No, it was an improv down by what they call the flats, where the smokestacks are and.
I went there one time.
And the fire detector thing went off when I was on stage, and water started squirting all over the place.
Because of the river on fire?
No, that had nothing to do.
it's
This is a different time.
It was another fire.
Oh, it was
I
another
guess my
time.
point is it's a shithole.
Yes, yes.
Not Cleveland. I mean the club, buddy.
Yeah.
Improv's in
No,
it.
Well,
no,
Cleveland,
you're
too.
right on both
Cleveland as
terms.
well. Cleveland as well. Cleveland as
I
well.
can say this. I lived there for a little bit. So.
Did you really?
Yeah, you don't get a Cleveland pass. That's not how that works.
it is a
But
pass.
you can say it
I
because it's a
can say
terrible
it
place.
sucks.
It's a terrible place where dreams go to die. Oh, you're still here.
It's a terrible place.
Which is
where
a
dreams go
miracle.
to die. Okay, so speaking of broads and generalizations, this is Jasmine Crockett. You want to see her new ad for running for Senate? It's a great reflection on how life is beyond parody these days. Let's watch.
How about this new one they have? Their new star, Crockett. How about her? She's the new star of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett. They're in big trouble.
Agreed.
But you have this woman, Crockett. She's a very low IQ person.
I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. Crockett. Oh, man. She's a very low IQ person.
As she looks dumbly
Somebody
into
said
the
the other
camera.
day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding.
Now they're going to rely on Crockett. Crockett's going to bring them back.
That's her ad. She put that out. You can't make this shit up. She's literally like, if I wanted to make fun of her running for the U.S. Senate, I would have done the same thing if I knew how to edit. I would have put that same basic thing together. Just her stupid ass looking off into the distance like one of the old glamour shots of someone just look over into the corner of the room over here, like you're longing for something, and then look at the camera, expressionless, to show that it doesn't mean anything what he says. Like, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. Jasmine Crockett is a reminder that even if you had the misfortune of growing up wealthy and going to expensive private schools and private colleges, you can still make it in today's America. Just stick on some draft-size eyelashes and fake ghetto accent, and bam, Congress. That's true. And speaking of Jasmine Crockett, hearing her talk in public and talking to a white crowd and a non-white crowd, this is what she reminds me of, this old classic 90s commercial.
This here freight train, Pete Pablo, me, I'm Motif. There's only one drink fat enough.
This is her on stage.
And that's Turbo Sport 7.
God, genius! The can's upside down.
Don't talk to me like a child. I played Hamlet at Cambridge.
Once again, you've ruined my concentration.
Excuse me. What's my motivation?
And that's basically Jasmine Crockett behind the cameras. 100%. You can't make this shit up. Anyway, continuing on, we're going to see Sargon of Akkad's recap of the Piers Morgan debate. And
at the moment, there is a great dialectic struggle going on in the right-wing space of Western politics. This struggle is between the forces of the previous liberal paradigm, which are colloquially called containment, and a radical right wing that is struggling to burst through the bonds in which it has been imprisoned for so long. The recent debate between Piers Morgan and Nick Fuentes brought this struggle to sharp relief, as it seemed to embody so many of the maladies which plague our political discourse. Not only do we have the last of the boomer liberals represented in the quivering blob of moral insecurity that is Piers Morgan, but we also have the immiserated but determined young men as represented by Nick Fuentes. What seems notable to me about this is that it's only really right-wing men discussing this debate. I've yet to see any left-wingers or women even notice, let alone care, that this argument is even happening. They don't seem to grasp what is actually going on here. The debate is taking on the aspect of a father attempting to deal with his angry son, a son who has realized that the world is stacked against him, and that his birthright is being given away to people who don't rightfully deserve it. When looked at through this lens, it's no wonder that the Western Zoomer is furious with the Boomer for being so cavalier with his inheritance. When you dig through the sedimentary political layers of the subject, we find at bottom the question that Fuentes and his groypers are, in their inarticulate way, asking. And that question is, why exactly do women, foreigners, homosexuals, transgenders, etc. deserve the same status, authority and consideration as the straight white man? Contained within this question are many important aspects of society that we are just not used to considering. Who will be dependent upon them? What will they embody with their authority? Are they capable of reproducing themselves in such a way that future generations can benefit from the accumulated social capital that they produce? The stock answer to this question comes, of course, from liberal philosophy. We ought not to hold prejudices against people because of their unchosen properties, as these are irrational, and all rational beings ought to be considered equals in the kingdom of ends. At base, it is an ontological question. To liberalism, each man, woman, and other that exists is essentially of the same type, and therefore the chains of inequality must be burst asunder.
For those of you just listening,
in order to usher in the reign
I've put
of
the bird lady
equality.
from Home Alone 2 next to Piers Morgan because they're the same person.
Equality that stripped the straight white man of his moral authority and deposed us from our commanding cultural position. Liberalism of all kinds, feminism, intersectionality, socialism, egalitarianism, has been drip-fed into the culture since the 60s and has poisoned our blood and made us weak and supine. And the militant Zoomerwaffen are the consequence of our failure. If we embodied a tradition that actually held our dignity as straight white men, first and foremost in its own worldview, they wouldn't have to look to historical foreign examples to find it. Speaking of failure, though, It is Piers Morgan that actually embodies this failure in his personal life. Disrespected by his wife,
There you
apparently
go.
cheated on regularly by her, and a figure of constant humiliation in public. He might be rich, but there seems to be little consolation.
So what's happening here is, so Piers Morgan during the Nick Fuentes debate. First of all, if anyone's familiar with Piers Morgan, he used to be somewhat respected, and then he lost the debate to Ben Shapiro horribly, like 10 years ago. Roughly, I want to say 10 years ago. It's close to that. Ever since then, he's been kind of teetering this line between being like a semi-Trump supporter, someone who's struggling with his identity as to whether he's a hard leftist or someone resembling some sort of MAGA person. But he debated Nick Fuentes because Nick Fuentes has become more prominent of late since the passing of Charlie Kirk. He's become a lot more reasonable since that happened. He's no longer... I mean, he could still be considered a white supremacist, but he doesn't hold a lot of the crazed views that he's previously had on that. He used to be a rampant anti-Semite and a rampant racist. Now, I don't know. It seems like something's changed in him, or either that or it's all a ploy. But during the debate, Piers Morgan got stuck on the fact that Nick Fuentes is a virgin, and just like all the 90s teen movies, and Piers Morgan fixated on it, started calling him a virgin, started calling him an incel, which is the modern way to call someone who disagrees with you, who is not the best looking of dudes, an incel, which means involuntarily celibate. And then what this says on screen here, what would Piers Morgan say? Celia Walden admits Ashley Madison membership to Gabby Roslin. Celia Walden is Piers Morgan's wife. Not only does she have her own last name, but Ashley Madison apparently is a Canadian cheating site, not a dating site, but it's a place where people can go to have low-key affairs. And I want to say she's like a porn star or some such. But Piers Morgan reveals he met his wife, Celia Walden, after he bombed while giving a speech, and she laughed at his discomfort. Piers Morgan's wife, I wear the trousers, Celia Walden, on Gunboarding Britain's. Is it wrong? Piers Morgan's wife admits fantasizing over watching Piers Morgan squirm. Celia Walden, when the husband's away, Mr. Suds comes to play. This is someone she has come to wash her car while her husband's away. I mean, you can't make this shit up. She probably met him and quote-unquote hired him on Ashley Madison.
The metaphysically desolate life Morgan evidently lives. Who would actually want to be Piers?
So basically, people are getting on Piers Morgan for calling Nick Fuentes a virgin incel, and meanwhile, and giving him like relationship advice and telling him, oh, this, pop, all that, and then turns out he's how do I put this delicately, a cuck.
Piers Morgan. Moreover, Morgan has been completely captured by the morality that led men writ large to such an ignoble end. During his debate with Fuentes, Morgan could do little else than play the predictable old liberal game of casting epithets. Racist, homophobic, misogynist, etc., etc., etc. Not only is this tiresome to men of my age, but for men of Fuentes' age, this is positively hilarious.
It is.
These liberal incantations do...
By the way, I am going to watch the full interview/debate probably Saturday or Sunday for the morning show. So I'll probably get on there and do that roughly about 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock Saturday morning. I'm going to wake up, get a couple cups of coffee in me, eat a little something, and then boom, we're watching it. It's about an hour and a half long. It is definitely worth the watch. I haven't watched it all the way through. I've seen quite a few clips, quite a few highlights. I watched Nux Taku watch a good chunk of it. It'll definitely be worth a watch. I can't wait to watch that with y'all.
not hold any power
and offer
over
commentary through the whole
them. And to
freaking
invoke
thing.
them is to admit that one wants to preserve the old order that they are here to destroy. In throwing these labels at Fuentes, Morgan admits that he is just a liberal himself. He is just here to defend the rights of women and minorities.
Which is
he
fine.
doesn't care about the straight white men who have been on the receiving end of such a regime. He is, in effect, attempting to pull up the ladder and reveals himself to be the last of the rear guard of a form of masculinity that has failed. Returning to the question then, we can see that the post-World War II consensus is trying to make us all free and equal, as it was assumed that all of the non-straight white male identity categories will either become socially neutral and impose no costs on society, or take up the moral burdens the straight white men have carried over the centuries. But is this true? And the answer is quite clearly no. Not only have minorities not been cost neutral to society, but women...
This isn't the video that I thought it was going to be, so I'm going to go ahead and move ahead and do the quick update for the for the DoorDash girl. Apparently, there's a little quick update going on here, so...
More updates on a DoorDash girl. Oh, I saw this. The DoorDash delivery
She
girl
looks
who
completely
filmed the
different
drunk
there.
man passing out with his pants down makes her first court appearance. You remember this girl, right? This girl recorded a guy that was naked in his own house because she said the door was open. And then she went through this entire fucking meltdown.
He just fired me, and the police are doing nothing. I lost my job. That was my only way to make money to pay my bills.
Getting mad that TikTok obviously took the video down because there was nudity. DoorDash closed her account.
You can't put
then
nudity
she got arrested by the police for
TikTok.
2 charges. Now she's in court.
The Oswego City judge allowing News Channel 9 to
Yay.
record the proceedings. The first look at 23-year-old Olivia Henderson
23.
outside her
She's
popular
this
TikTok
demented
page.
at 23.
Their front door was wide open, and they were within eyesight of the front door, laying on the couch indecently
To the
exposed
left.
to me.
This is her last post, published October 26th, 2 weeks after her now-deleted video causing this controversy. Working as a driver for delivery service DoorDash, Henderson claimed she was dropping off a food order when through the customer's door, saw him on the couch naked.
Some of the claims that she had made on social media were not in fact true.
The man, drunkenly unconscious on his couch, did nothing wrong. But he found out lewd images of him were published for thousands of TikTok users to
Millions.
see. So police criminally charged Henderson with 2
As they
counts
should.
related to unlawful surveillance. Court
I love it.
documents accuse her of recording, quote, intimate parts without consent when he had a reasonable
There you go.
expectation of privacy.
He did.
So she just had her first court date. And do you know what the judge told her and her
I saw
lawyer
this.
when they asked for there to be no cameras in the courtroom? The judge straight up looked at them and said, "Oh, so now you don't want cameras to be involved?"
Based.
Diabolical? Yes, it
Fully
is. And
based,
that's
fully
exactly how you
diabolical.
should treat people like this. You should. And I think they should record the entire thing because, again, do we want to live in a world where we have people that are going around and recording other individuals in their own homes for clout and then acting like they've been sexually assaulted because
Yeah,
you
and she said she was
violated
assaulted.
the rules of your job? Do we really want to live in a world like that? I don't want to live in that world.
At worst,
Has anyone been paying
at worst, she was flashed. But even so, the order said to leave it on the doorstep. He didn't want her to come in. He didn't want her to knock. What would I have done if I saw the door wide open? I would have approached with caution. I would have taken a peek in to make sure no one was dead in the living room. When I saw that he was naked and all exposed on the couch, I would have been like, "Eesh." Maybe sat the food just on the inside of the door and closed the door for him. And if there's a knob lock, probably would have locked the knob. Out of courtesy. Because everyone's had a bad day. Everyone's had a really rough day. I've never fallen asleep while drunk or high with the door open. I've fallen asleep with it unlocked. But I've never fallen asleep with it open before. Well, at worst, with the door open, but the screen door was shut because it shuts automatically. But this girl's 100% in the wrong. She didn't even seem that bothered by it during the video of when she walked away. this whole thing was pretty ridiculous. But let's continue to the Elon Musk video. We'll get as much of this done as we can in the next 5 or 6 minutes.
Attention to just how radical Elon Musk has been on Twitter recently. I don't know whether you've noticed, but he's tweeting some pretty hardline things. Now, this is by far the sort of softest of it. Why is a false history of slavery taught in American schools? Great question. Great question. Why have we allowed leftists to educate our children, create a false narrative of what happened? And it's not like you can't point to the narrative and say the actual narrative of what has happened and say, well, there are bad things. Of course there are bad things in there, but not uniquely evil things. Yeah. And that's what the left have been trying to do. Create the narrative that the left and white people in particular are somehow uniquely evil throughout world history. Now, this is just not true. White people are not uniquely evil. Lots of evil has happened.
Not all
long
of them.
Before white people were...
And I will say a lot of it has to do with power. And that's power of any level, power on a global scale, power on a regional scale. Notice that the right, for a lot of people, has been somewhat oppressive for a lot of people. And these days, the right hasn't really been like that until recently it's starting to swing back in the other direction. Most of this is because when the tolerant left came into power, they did the exact same thing that the right did. The only difference is, instead of sending in letters, which is all you could do, pre-internet, or even pre-X, Twitter, people get into big spats on there, and it's just, it makes everything blow up even more than it actually is. Imagine all those unhinged Karens on the right getting on X or Twitter in the 90s or before. I know it didn't exist back then, but imagine if it did. I don't know if that would have exacerbated the push to the left, or if it would have made the right hold on to power for longer. It's hard to say. But it always takes me back to that old adage that Lewis Black used to say. You have a party of bad ideas and a party of no ideas. What happens is a Republican gets up and says, I got a really bad idea. He's talking about Congress, of course. And the Democrats gets up and says, and I can make it shittier. That's basically how Congress works.
Were anything anyone ever talked about anywhere, in fact. Really terrible things have happened all over the world, and most of the time they just continued. And occasionally you would get some king or prince or lawgiver who would be particularly magnanimous, particularly compassionate, and they would put an end to these things. I mean, one thing to look up is, one leader to look up is Ashoka the Great, who had a vast empire in India, massacred many, many people, and then became a pacifist after he had subdued all of his enemies out of guilt for the blood that he had shed. Like this is an unusual person throughout history. Most conquerors, most civilizations didn't care. And so the fact that European civilization does have that Christian compassion and charity within it is one of the things that actually marks it apart from most of the other civilizations. I mean, if we talk about slavery in particular, the impulse to end slavery primarily came from Christianity, and it was filtered through the sort of English lens of rights and liberties, and it ends up in the liberal worldview that slavery is wrong in every case, which of course I agree that it is, because I'm an Englishman.
I don't know if it is Christianity per se that got the notion of ending slavery in the West. But I will say a lot of the reason why England ended slavery, and they were the first to do so, in the West at least, was to kind of get an edge on the Americas. I believe they did it not around, was it the War of 1812? When did Britain end slavery?
1833.
Okay, so I'm way off. But it's in the wake of the war with the Americas, the War of 1812 and all that, on our way to a civil war to do the very same thing. England, maybe they saw the error of their ways. Maybe it was during our wars they saw that people who weren't free to live their lives fighting for a country that enslaved them at the time. Who knows what it was, but to say it was strictly Christianity. But then again, slavery has pretty much only been abolished in Christian nations. So there's also that. I mean, there's still concentration camps in China. Most African countries still practice slavery or have only recently abolished it. I mean, hell, Somalia, they just outlawed rape like 5 years ago. So who's to say? But to say that the Western world is particularly evil for the slave trade, when the slave trade has been around for millennia, and just like everyone says, the word slave comes from Slav, which is, from the Slavic countries in Eastern Europe.
But why is a false history being taught? The answer is, of course, to demoralize the United States. To make sure that the people of the United States will not fight for their own country, for the integrity of their country, for the possession of their own country. Because the idea is to make them feel reviled by their own country, to make them feel grossed out about it, to make them feel as if the country is not something they want to be associated with, which is a pretty bloody evil thing to do, isn't it? It's absolutely insane to poison people's minds before they're able to make rational decisions of their own into thinking that their own country is something that they should avoid. And this is the point. As Hunter Ash here has said, is a nation a specific people united by heritage, tradition, and shared values? Or is it any arbitrary entity defined by paperwork? This is the core political issue of our time, which is absolutely correct. And Elon has clearly picked his side. Members of a nation must have a common culture, or it is not a nation. I agree. And that puts him firmly on the right. So the libertarian tech bro Elon seems to have evolved rather swiftly. Remember back at the beginning of the year when he was talking about the H-1Bs? In a year, he's realized, oh wait, actually there is more to a nation than merely productivity. And actually, if you look at it, yes, it has to be. A nation is a group of people who are related.
And I love how Elon Musk, other than technically Trump, even though a lot of people will argue the fact of whether or not he's an actual billionaire, but we'll say the two, Trump and Musk, are the only two perceived right-wing, the only two that can really be seen as right-wing, even though Elon Musk has been a liberal his whole life. Same with Trump, really. But and most millionaires and billionaires support the left. And yet the right is seen as the party of the elites, the millionaires and billionaires. And coming soon, the first trillionaire. Mostly due to inflation, but let's be honest. That's how you get all the billionaires and trillionaires. You decrease the value of the money itself. But, excuse me. I'm still fighting something. But let's continue.
By not only blood, but also history, also ancestry, culture, norms. The way that
Why don't
they
I finish
view
my
the
thoughts?
world.
Who knows,
all
man? I've got
the people together.
AUD,
and
HD.
Elon is arriving at that point.
It's great.
And so he goes on about this. It's deeply weird. The absolute top priority for a lot of American and European politicians is bringing in millions of unvetted third world migrants. They could have shut down right-wing populism entirely by compromising on this issue, but they refuse.
Yes.
And Elon thinks this is about importing a left-wing voting bloc that depends on government handouts. Now, that is true on one level, but on another level, it's also about the overall mission, which is destroying the European nations. It is destroying
the West.
The United States, destroying Canada, destroying Australia, destroying Western Europe.
And that really is what most of this is about. And the irony is the reparations that many would argue is due to black people is being given to people who aren't even from this country, who haven't even really been abused by this country. And they're handing it out hand over fist. They're devaluing our currency by doing so. They're just printing the money. I don't know, man. I'm a big conspiracy guy. I don't let it drive my reality, but it's always interesting to think about, especially when I don't know, sometimes some of these things feel like a bit more than conspiracy.
They are on the universalist position that any amount of parochial feeling towards one's own nation is essentially an inevitable path towards Nazism, and so destroying the nations prevents that from ever happening again. So it is true that they do want to use these people as voting blocks in order to gain power and leverage themselves to be able to further destroy the nation, but primarily it's actually about the destruction of the nation. And he's arriving at some very important points that are inflection points. When you decide that murder is much worse than words, suddenly all of the words that they use against you mean very little.
And I'll end on this. Just know that I don't remember if it was in America or if it was in England. I'm pretty sure it was in England. But right now, what happened was someone attacked a man. I think he got stabbed. The man got stabbed, and after he got stabbed, a white dude by a black dude, he called the black dude the N-word, and they dropped all the charges. Now, I've never been stabbed on the street by a stranger, but I imagine a lot of words will come from my mouth. I don't see myself saying the N-word, but the man was stabbed. And a lot of thoughts, I'm sure, come to your mind when that happens. But I don't know, but to completely drop the charges, as they dropped the charges with this guy in Charlotte, North Carolina, after this poor girl, and this is after she was already stabbed. She doesn't quite know she's dead. And you see her realize it as she's dying. It's one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen. But anyway, sorry we didn't get too much into the last story. We'll see if we can cover a little more tomorrow. Also, tomorrow we'll cover a little bit of the apparently Anita Sarkeesian's back. And we'll get into a little bit of the affordability crisis. And then Saturday and Sunday, we'll do the Nick Fuentes interview. And I've got a few other things for Sunday. We'll see if we can get to do both. But I want to appreciate y'all for stopping by. It's been kind of a slow day for as much news as there was today. I tried to fit as much in as I could. And I grabbed the wrong videos by mistake, at least as far as this video right here. And then I added this as a curiosity because I needed to fill the runtime. Let's be honest. But I appreciate you all for coming here. I love you all. Have a great day. And just be kind to each other as best you can. And if people make it hard, then be snarky and be sarcastic. Thanks all.